Hello, my beautiful hearts. It is your favorite spiritualist, the Aquarian alchemist, and I am here with a video for you, okay? So this video is going to be a little bit different. I just want to actually take some time and go over the new blog that I posted, okay? So for the month of July, I said I was going to be focusing on presence and being more present on all of my platforms, and that's what I've been doing, okay? And but I did get busy a little bit the last couple days, so I wanted to make sure that I'm giving you some FaceTime and showing up and kind of going over my thought process behind the whole blog and just elaborating on some of the thoughts that I presented there. So just to recap, for July, we're talking about our presence is part of the purpose, okay? Being more present daily. If you are a content creator, posting on your socials daily, understanding, an energy audit, understanding your energy, understanding the need for boundaries as part of your energy audit, as well. Here comes my cat. What? Wait a minute. I'm working. Can I work? Okay. So, let's get to the blog. The blog is posted on my website, aapothecary.shop, and it's called Opening Up Again, How to Navigate New Relationships After a Season of Isolation, okay? So I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to this blog. We've all gone through, whether they be brief or long, we went through periods of isolation, periods where we just need to be with ourselves, times where we just need to take a step back, okay? And I most definitely have been through a big season of isolation. And I've had to, go inward, and I've had to take some time to myself, okay? So the way I broke it down in this blog, I talked about how life comes in seasons and cycles, just like Earth, just like the Earth planet we live on. We have different seasons like autumn, winter, spring, and summer, right? And the way I broke it down was, I said spring is like a season of new beginnings, new relationships, fresh ideas. Summer is like energy, expansion, new things happening, being out and about. That's what kind of, when I think about summer, that's what it represents to me. Autumn is about harvesting and letting go, right? You're harvesting the seeds that you've planted over the summer, over the spring, and you're harvesting. You're letting go of what you don't need or what no longer serves you. Okay, that releasing period also starts after that harvesting, because you're getting in a whole bunch of new stuff, and now you're looking at everything you have and you say, okay, well, now that I have this, I don't need this anymore. So that's where that purging and releasing starts to take place. Winter now is more of a place of rest. It's more of a place of reflection. It's more of a place of necessary quiet and healing. Okay, that's that solitude space. Okay, preparing for the next season. All right, and so I talked about how, we can have seasons like this in our own lives, and although in nature the seasons are really predictable, because we know, okay, after spring, summer's coming, after summer, fall's coming. But in life, the seasons don't always go as planned. You could be in a winter season for a long time, or you can be in a summer season for longer than you plan to be. It's kind of like that feeling of, you go on vacation, you come back, and you just can't get off vacation, but also going through a period of winter, like going through a period of isolation, due to illness, due to, anything, anything could cause you to go into a season of isolation, right? Grief, that's a big one for me. That's what caused me to go into my long stints of isolation. I was dealing with a lot of grief from passed on loved ones, and grief for just also, people don't really talk about this as much, but you have to grieve relationships, even if you don't leave lose someone physically, if you a relationship ends, it could you're going to go through a grieving period even if that person is still alive, so having to grieve the people that have passed, but also grieving relationships that are no longer there. And that takes time, especially when it's someone that's been in your life for a long time. If it's a parent, a lot of people are going no contact with their family members, with their parents, with their siblings. And it's because we're starting to see this great divide where, there's certain people who are just healing, they're working on themselves, they want to become better. And then there's certain people that they don't necessarily feel like they need to heal. They don't feel like, it's that serious. They don't feel like that's what they need right now. And that's okay. It's not about shaming anyone or saying, you need to get your life together, because all this healing and changes, they come in our own time, right? We don't press that on anyone. We don't shame anyone into changing or becoming a better person, because they might think they're fine just like they are, whether they are or they're not. That's not for us to say. That goes into being judgmental. All you can do is discern and say, you know what, that's not how I get down. That's not for me. That's my discernment. That's my, form of saying, that's not good for me. That I don't like that. That may work for you. I'm not judging what you do. I'm just saying that's not works for me. I don't like that. That doesn't, I'm not, so that's okay to do on either end, to say, I don't want to change. I'm fine how I am. It's not that serious. Okay. But then there's people who are changing, who are healing, and who are at a point in their life where they only want to be around people who are healing. They only want to be around people who can lift them up to a higher level, who can help them be their best self. But if someone isn't want to be their best self, how are they going to help you be your best self? And so that's where this separation starts to take place. That's where this saying, I'm going to spend less time with these people or this person, that starts to come into play, right? So, excuse me. We're starting to see that. Go on YouTube. I mean, not even just YouTube. Go on TikTok. There's a big community of people who have gone no contact with their families, their parents, because people are going through these healing processes, and they're growing up, and they're realizing, like, the things that have hurt them, and the things that they have experienced. And when they bring it to their parent or their grandparent or their aunt, uncle, whoever, and they're not being validated, they're not saying, okay, I'm sorry for that, or they're not, taking responsibility. That's when that barrier comes up. That's when those boundaries start to get put in place. And it's like, hold up, you don't care how I feel. You don't care how your actions affected me or how they're continuing to affect me. So I have to protect myself from you, since you're not going to protect me from you by changing or by, taking responsibility. So we're seeing a lot of this, and it's going to continue to happen. From what I'm seeing and from what I'm getting from spirit, this is going to continue to ramp up and become more prevalent. So I kind of went off on a tangent on that, but so it says, imagine if nature's winter lasted longer. Frozen ground, bare trees, bitter winds, year after year. That's what it can feel like internally when you withdraw from connection or lost your sense of belonging. So how do we thaw out and defrost after the long periods of hibernation when it's time to rejoin the world and engage in our communities? Okay, so that's what I mean. When this happens, when you decide, I can't deal with this person, or it hurts too much to interact with them, or they just won't respect me, or they just can't see me for who I'm becoming, so I have to separate myself. Then that can make you go into that period of isolation, saying, well, dang, if I can't trust my parent, or if I can't trust my siblings, or if I can't trust my grandma, then who can I trust? And that just makes you further want to isolate. Okay, so, but as you heal, you go through that stage. You reflect, you heal, you journal, you cry, you grow. Sometimes you talk to them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you talk to a therapist. You know, you go through your stages of healing and grief, right? And then there comes a point in time when you're ready to emerge from that isolation, where your heart is healed and you're ready to say, okay, let's try again. I'm ready to try again. I'm ready to meet my tribe. I'm ready to meet new people who are on my level, or who are able to speak to my heart and I'm able to speak to their heart. And you know, this is what I'm looking for now. I want my tribe who can love and respect the person I have become, right? So once you do that, you have to go through this time of emerging, right? Emerging from your cocoon, emerging from hibernation, right? So you know, and it's scary, right? It can be scary, especially if, you know, you went into hibernation because of being hurt by someone you love or care about, right? So it's like, um how do I get started? How do I get back out there? How do I, you know, uh how do I just open up again? You know, that's kind of scary to do. Hmm. Start with validation. First of all, knowing that, you know, you can take your time. Start small. Go a little bit at a time. You don't have to just jump out there and, you know, say, hey world, here I am, and you know, tell everybody everything about you. You know, take your time. You know, step out, you know, but start with validating the whole process, you know, because when you go through isolation, it's very good for you to validate yourself, because a lot of times people isolate because they don't get that validation, or they didn't receive it when they probably should have. Okay, so you have to validate yourself. You say, okay, all right, it's time for me to get out here. It's time for me to meet new people. It's time for me to make new friends. It's time for me to reconnect. I'm ready. I've been isolated. I've been in hermit. I've been healing. Okay, let me get out here. You know, start there, and knowing that it's okay to be a little awkward. It's okay to be a little clumsy. You don't have to be perfect, you know, but taking your time, starting small, and following the guide and directions I've given with confidence. So yeah, I went through and I've wrote down in this blog, I've detailed, you know, how to reconnect. And first of all, you're going to start with recognizing who is good for you, because one of the big fears about connecting is running into the same people that we had to feel like we had to isolate from, or feel like we had to run away from or get away from. So you know, we don't want to go through those experiences again. We don't want to, you know, jump out of the fire pan into the, how's it saying go? Step out of the frying pan into the pot. I don't know, but you know what I mean. You know, you don't want to go from a bad situation to a worse situation, or you know, just meeting the same people over again, right? So what you got to do is you got to recognize, is this person good for me? Recognizing that early on, looking for green flags and looking for red flags, and knowing, okay, you know, is this person, could they be a good fit? And to me, for me, this all goes with starting slow. That's what I love to do, because it just gives me so much room to say, you know, okay, you know, things are going good, but it gives you time to get to know someone. Because when you first meet someone, you mostly meet their representative, right? You meet someone who's on their best behavior, who's, you know, they just met someone new, you just met someone new, they're excited, you're excited, hey, you know. But you have to observe a person, right? You have to observe their actions as well as their words. Are they someone whose actions align with their words? Or do they say one thing and do something else, right? You got to look for that. You got to notice how you feel around this person, right? How do you feel internally? Do you feel happy? Do you feel relaxed, calm? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel nervous? Do you feel, you know, like you got to watch your back? You know, how do you feel around this person? Okay, look for reciprocity. Okay, uh are they putting in the same amount of effort as you? Because that's what relationships are built on. Two or more people, like putting in effort towards a situation. Are they always calling you? Are you always calling them? Are they always texting you? You know, look for that. You know, oh, you know, I'm always fitting the bill when you go out with them. Are they always fitting the bill? You know, look for those type of reciprocity in relationships, because that's something that you definitely want to see and you definitely want to have. That's something I honestly look for. If I get lunch this week, I'm not gonna say I expect it, but if we go out the next week and they are expecting me to pay again, I'm gonna be like, okay, that's not reciprocity, they're not using me for free lunches, are they? So you gotta look at that type of stuff and say, okay, what is this? What do we have here? Is this somebody that's just like on the free lunch tour? So, pay attention to those type of things. Is this someone that's respecting my boundaries? If I tell them, hey, like for instance, this is one for me. A lot of people, women particularly, like to call their friends hoes and B words and all this kind of stuff. That's something I do not like. Okay, I do not like it at all. As someone who grew up in a family, in a household, in places that people use very harsh language, even me back then, you know what I'm saying? But it bothered me. It bothered me then, and it bothers me now. But now I'm grown, and I can say, I don't like that. Please don't say that around me. Don't use that kind of language towards me. Because if you're someone who grew up being criticized a lot, you know what I mean? Even when someone calls you a name jokingly, it can trigger you. It can hurt you. It can make you feel insecure. And that's not something that your friends should be making you feel. And it's good for you to express this, to your friends. Especially if it's something that happens all the time. If it happens once, okay, maybe you can like let it go. But if it's something that's recurring and you're noticing it, you got to set that boundary and let them know, hey, I don't like that. Please don't do that. That's gonna put a strain on our relationship because of my past, because of what I've been through. So and if they do respect that, hey, this person, they respect me, they respect our friendship, they understand when I explain to them. But if they disregard it and they continue to do it, or they do it and say, oh my bad, oh I'm sorry, but they keep doing it, it's like, okay, they're not respecting me. Because I've gotten to the point where I'm like, what people say about you, they mean. This is just how I feel. I could be, I could be being too serious. I could be taking it too literal, but I just don't like it. For my girlfriends, if you're one of my girlfriends, you want to call me a pet name, you can call me Boo, you can call me Booski, you can call me Queen, you can call me Lady, you can call me Ladybug, all that kind of little cutesy names I like. But don't call me a bee, and don't call me a hoe, and don't call me a hooker, and don't call me a heifer. Don't call me that stuff. I don't like that. Mm-mm. So the next one I have here is shared value and interests. Okay. It says, why differences can enrich a relationship, shared values and interests can create a foundation of meaningful connection. So, when I think about this, I think about friendships and relationships. It's like, you don't want someone that's just like you. You want someone that can open your mind to new things and new ways of being and seeing the world. But at the same time, you have someone that's too different from you, values wise. They do things you would never dream of doing, that could be harmful to themselves or others. You got to kind of look at that and say, can I trust this person? You gotta kind of ask yourself. It says these form of common ground. This forms a common ground on which trust and intimacy can flourish, right? So say, I'm just gonna use for example, if someone is your friend and you know that they lie to their boyfriend all the time, and it's like, okay, that's your boyfriend. You lie to him all the time. Are you lying to me too? That's just how my mind thinks. You know what I'm saying? Or that's a habit you have. That's just how you get down. You just lie to people. So how am I any different than the person you sleep next to? If you can just lie to them all the time, then how, are you going to lie to me all the time? You know what I mean? That's my thought process. I don't know. So that makes me think, okay, boundary. Okay, so I can only say so much for you. Okay, so I gotta take what you tell me with a grain of salt, because I don't know if you're telling the truth or not. Okay. So, and that's not judge, and that's not a judgment. That's discerning who you're dealing with. That's learning and observing the person that you're dealing with, that you're interacting with, that you, because when a person comes into your life, when a person comes into my life, it's like it's a probationary period, right? Because you got to get to know each other. You got to see, is this person a good fit for my life? Can they fit into how I'm doing things, where I'm headed? Because at the end of the day, no, a relationship isn't just about you, but it needs to complement you. Okay, you need to be equally yoked with a person, right? Even if it's not a romantic relationship, even with your friendship, you wanna have that camaraderie. Okay, so now we figured out, hey, this person's a good fit. They respect my boundaries. They're trustworthy. um they're reciprocal. We do for each other. I can count on them, they can count on me. We built this type of, we're building this bond, and so far so good. So now I want to start to let down my guard even more, right? I want to really let this person in more. So how do I go about doing that? Okay? Because let's be honest, even with going into a new relationship and dealing with someone new, you're still protective. You're still going to be somewhat guarded. I know I am, and I have been. But letting that guard down is possible, you know. So, okay, it says go slow. That's the big thing. Go slow. Honor your pace, right? And communicate. During the beginning, especially during the beginning of a relationship, communication is key, right? Being, and not just communication, being honest. Don't find yourself becoming a yes man or a yes girl to somebody just to fit in with them, or just to say okay, because later on down the line, those things in areas where y'all don't fit together, it's gonna resurface, it's gonna show up, you're gonna see that, and they're gonna feel it, and you're gonna feel it, right? So it's like, if you're honest throughout the process of getting to know each other and saying, that's where you can say, you know what, I don't really feel like we have that much in common, or I really don't feel like, you know, we're a good fit for each other's lifestyles, because we have two separate, different, totally different lifestyles. You can see that because you're honest and you're upfront, right? Not saying you have to tell everybody your deepest secrets and wants and needs as soon as you meet them, but as you getting to know them and you feel like they could possibly fit and you want to open up, that's when you got to start really getting to the meat and potatoes and understanding, okay, you know, is this someone, can I really let them in, and how am I going to go about letting them in step by step, right? So first thing you want to do, honor your pace and take it slow. Take small steps, revealing parts of yourself gradually, right? Not all at once. Communicating fears and needs and expectations, right? Just like I said about being called names, that's something that I would I would say up front to someone. If they call other people out of their name or whatever and they're okay with it, that doesn't bother me, as long as you're not saying it to me and directly saying, hey B, come here, do this, no, 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 no. So um communicate your fears and needs. It's okay to talk about why you were isolated, when you were isolated, how long you've been isolated, and just to kind of let them know and kind of reassure them that I need to take it slow, and here's why. Or please, bear with me while I work through this. You're the first, second couple new friends I've just made, and I'm just trying to, feel things out. Seeking support. Oh, before we seek support, challenge negative of some assumptions. This is a really big one, because when you've been hurt and you've been isolated, it can be easy to get this feeling of, what's the point? What's the point? They're just gonna hurt me. What's the point? They're just gonna leave. What's the point? You have to challenge these negative assumptions that try to creep into your mind. This is the hurt. This is the protective mechanism. This is your defense mechanism popping into play, saying, "Oh, this person's getting close. Remember what happened last time somebody got close." you have to challenge that and say, no, oh, it's okay, this is different, this time is different, I have experience now, I have, I have better communication skills now, I have a knowledge and wealth of information to draw off of now that I didn't have back then. This time is different, and the outcome will be different as well. You have to talk to yourself and say those things and let yourself know and reassure and validate yourself as well, okay? But then, also seeking support outside the relationship. Talk to trusted friends or a therapist or a support group about your journey, about your emotions with others, and help foster self-awareness and resilience. So I'm a big advocate for therapy, for counseling, for all of this, because I believe that it's important to have that outside of your relationship. I do not feel like it's appropriate to burden your friends or certain or family members with all of your emotional things, right? I feel like it's okay, not saying you can't talk to them about it, you can, but just keep in mind, like me, I'm like always keeping in mind that everyone has their life, right? And we're all living this life. We're all trying to figure things out. You know what I mean? If people already have all their stuff going on, and I'm going to come and pour all of my hopes, fears, dreams, everything on this person and ask them to carry it, I don't think that's fair. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think it's considerate. That's why I say I think it's important to always have a therapist, a trusted outside party that you can speak to about things. Um, you know, my mom used to always talk to me about my brothers and my siblings, and I didn't like that. You know what I'm saying? I was like, can you talk to your siblings about my siblings instead of talking to me about my siblings? That's what I would ask her, and that was one of the things that we kind of, would disagree on, because she kind of saw me as a friend or a like a sister more than a daughter, and I'm like, no, I'm your daughter. um but having those boundaries, that's another place where those boundaries come into play. So certain things and it's certain topics is not appropriate to speak to everybody about, right? Okay, and we have to just use that discernment, and we have to, you know use judgment, proper judgment and caution when talking about that. And I feel like that a lot of people, I feel like it would be less betrayals, less, fallouts if people would stop telling other people stuff they don't need to tell them, especially friends and family, And people think, well, that's the point of having a friend. That's not the point of having a friend. Your friend is not your therapist. Your mate is not your therapist. They're not your doctor. You see what I mean? And it needs to be a barrier there. I think it's important. I really do. Okay. But celebrate your success, celebrate your progress. Every step towards vulnerability is worth honoring. Whether it's accepting an invitation, sharing a story, or expressing a need, growth happens gradually and setbacks are part of the process. Okay. So say you meet someone, you go through all these steps, you're seeing, okay, they're working out, things are going good, but all of a sudden something happens and it looks like things aren't going to work out. It looks like, their lifestyle and my lifestyle just doesn't mesh well together. I don't do the things that they do, whatever. It's okay to say, okay, well, I'm glad I met this person. I'm glad you came into my life for this brief period, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think we should go pursue this any further because, we're just too different, or we're just headed in two different directions. That's okay to do. I feel like people need to learn to be okay with saying those things, with expressing that. Yeah, because it's okay. Right? Building new relationships after a long period of being single or isolated is both brave and hopeful. Remember, you are not required to rush. Take your time and observe, connect, and heal. Give yourself and others grace, the grace of patience, okay? Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. Challenge those negative assumptions, those negative thoughts when they come in. you know, because you are worthy. You're worthy of connection. You're worthy of care. You're worthy of love. And it's not too late. It's not too late to find your new best friend. It's not too late to find your tribe. It's not too late to find your husband or wife. It's not too late. You can still do it. You just have to be open. You have to have your heart open and willing to connect. Okay, this is basically what I wanted to go over. I hope it's helpful. I hope it helps someone, you know, open up and get back out there and connect. We don't have much summer left, you know, we're like halfway through the summer, so you know there's still plenty of barbecues and beach days and parties to go to. So get out there and meet people and connect and see who you can see. You never know what it could be. You might be standing or sitting right next to your next best friend or your new boo. You never know. You never know. Well, I'm going to close the video here. I want y'all to know that I love you and I'm rooting for you and wishing you the best. I'm rooting for myself too, because I'm out here making new friends as well. So all this stuff, this relates to me too, right? So I will see you in the next one, and I love you. Ciao.